real quick, I'd like to say a few things here. First, in reviewing and replaying Monday's meeting in my mind, I realized that as board chair, I failed to anticipate a couple things. One, the lack of knowledge within the community that the district had assembled its own criteria for evaluating our COVID threat level. And two, the potential that depending how an individual analyzed the district's criteria charts, they could see a threat level that did not align to Panhandle's assessment. In a moment, I'm going to ask Dr. Cook to just briefly recap how the district came to have its own criteria. But before I do, I'd like to apologize to my fellow trustees. I apologize that my failure to anticipate put us at odds on Monday, and in turn that led to intense scrutiny of you and the district. Unfortunately, some of that scrutiny turned nasty and personal, and it fell well below the character of a community as great as Coeur d'Alene. I'm sorry for any hurt and pain that may have caused you and your family. Clearly, you are upstanding citizens and elected officials that care deeply about our community, and I'm humbled to serve with you. I know the time and energy that you've put into this volunteer job, and you do so with the pure intent of doing what is best for our youth. So thank you for what you do, and thanks for doing it with me. Before I turn over to Dr. Cook, just a little housekeeping. I want to note a couple changes. One, I'm super proud, as I know we all are, that we live stream our board meetings. And that was something that started new in the last year or two. And as evident by the increasing numbers of viewers, this option has been appreciated by our constituents. Unfortunately, many of the views are through Facebook, and the thread of comments got out of hand on Monday. As elected officials, we welcome input and feedback, and we're willing to take the good, the bad, and the ugly. But I cannot support the use of the district's Facebook page for staff, citizens, and students to squabble and attack one another. Going forward, board meetings will be live streamed through the district's YouTube channel only. And to streamline the process of submitting comments to board members, we have created a new email address, trustees@cdaschools.org, that will allow those wishing to contact all 5 board members a quick opportunity to do so. Thank you, and hope you can appreciate that. Dr. Cook, let me turn it over to you, and if you could just give us kind of a brief recap of how we came up with our criteria and that process.
Well, thank you, Chair Morshrow. I wish I'd have known you were going to do that before you turned it over to me. That's a tough one to follow, but I appreciate those words, and I think very well done. And thank you for doing that for not just for our district, but for our community, and bringing us back to what we're trying to deliver upon. Okay, so there has been some confusion. We've gotten a lot of questions, both internally and externally, about why we have established our own measurement system, if you will, when Panhandle Health District is providing that measurement system for community risk throughout the region. And I'll tell you that our system, we developed it early on, and we developed it early on with Panhandle Health District's feedback. If you recall, back in the summer, as this thing was moving and changing, and we were trying to get ahead of it, we requested to Panhandle District to give us some tool to help us navigate this. And they gave us a kind of a guiding document, and that guiding document was pretty subjective. And we presented that as a part of our reopening plan to you all, and we had talked with Panhandle Health District quite a bit about that, and that it didn't seem to give us the kind of objective criteria we were seeking to help us make those and facilitate the decisions on when it was time to move between categories. And so that dialogue was happening for many, many weeks. We, through feedback with them, started building this kind of a criteria referenced, kind of objective based measurement system, directly in contact with them, and also, quite frankly, directly in contact with our local medical experts as well at Kootenai Health. Our criteria that we established based upon that feedback, notwithstanding anything that we did outside of that, was that the three most important things for us to watch, and it's been in our documentation since the beginning, was incidence rate for cases in the community, percent positivity, which, as you recall, is the out of the total pool of people tested, the percentage that test positive. It's appearing that that's a really predictive indicator on how much community spread's going on. And then the last one was some measure of the hospitalization and the nature of the hospitalization. And so we built that model, and we built that model prior to any model that Panhandle Health District had put out. And we built it in relationship to our 4-category system. Meanwhile, as we were building that, Panhandle Health started building one for the other districts, who I think, because this is such an unprecedented event and time for schools to be functioning, there was I guess a demand, I'm not sure, that somebody do something like that across the region as well. And so Panhandle responded. They've built a system that other districts could use. And if you recall, their very first model they built was a 3-category model, so that aligned with the state's guidance. We chose as a district to build our model for reopening schools with 4 categories to make sure that we had more flexibility. And I still believe that that's the right move for our community completely. After some time living with that 3-stage model, Panhandle Health District went to a 4-stage model. Now, I will tell you that that's actually quite similar to ours. I will tell you their criteria is similar, but a little different. They also use incidence rate. They also use percent positivity, and they also use the gating criteria of hospitalizations, but they categorize it a little differently. And so you will see in your packet today that exists currently. And one of the differences between our system is we use the percent positivity from Kootenai Health as an indicator, because we felt like it was a little more specific to our area and a little more regionally located. Panhandle Health District right now gets the percent positivity across the entire region. And so it includes all 5 counties in North Idaho in that data set. And so I think that's a pretty clear explanation as to why there are some discrepancies. They are very similar systems. And if you recall, I think Panhandle Health District moved the region, if you will, or excuse me, moved Kootenai County into the yellow category. I think 2 weeks prior to school. It was, I might be off on the date, but it was a little before school started, and therefore, I think that's what drew the attention to the fact that there were 2 different systems in place. And so I think what we're now going to, I think, need to decide is, do we want to maintain the system that the district staff and administration built with the input and expertise of our local health officials and medical officials, with both Kootenai Health and Panhandle Health District weighing in? And I will tell you that they were very helpful, very cooperative, and also very complimentary of the system that is in place now. And so I think that's part of what I think this team has to decide, is whether or not that's meeting the needs of this community, or we want to go a different direction with that. So I'll stand for any questions on that if any of you would like to dive into that for a minute.
Dr.
Any
McGrath?
questions?
Yeah, I just had a quick question about the metrics that were included in our newest packet, and under the positivity rate for September 24th. So then, is it a fair assessment that that's Kootenai County's or Kootenai Health's metric, not Panhandle's metric? Because it is confusing that we're considering a new model, but the metrics in our packet are for our old model. Do we have Panhandle's positivity rate this morning?
So yes, Trustee May, the answer to your question is yes. That's the percent positivity from Kootenai Health regarding essentially Kootenai County. And when I say Kootenai County, there's obviously some variability, because they don't exclude folks that come in from the outlying regions when they collect that data. It's just the number of cases that are presented at that site. The percent positivity that Panhandle Health currently is stating is slightly lower. It's 7.8%. It is on their website for that. I think that very similar window of time, but I would reiterate that that also includes the region and not just Kootenai County. So yes, that isn't in your packet at this point, because at this point we aren't using their data as a measurement tool, but it is on their website.
Great, thank you very much.
What we did include in the packet, and hopefully you had a chance to see that, and I'm just backing up here so I can see it. Under the attachments, under this action item, there were a couple of PDFs. One was our metrics that Lisa was just talking about, and that's the one on the screen now. The other one was the COVID, PhD COVID risk level by county document. And really that's an explanation document of their metrics and how they determine whether we're in green, yellow, orange, or red. And so if you scroll to page 2 or 3 on that document, you can see how they do that. Thank you. It's on the screen there now. What they don't do is they don't break out the metrics on their reporting. They just they have the meter on their homepage, and I believe they update that every Thursday. And they point it by county to green, yellow, orange, or red. And in our packet on the PDF, it's pointed at orange, but that's just an example. As Dr. Cook just said, they currently have Kootenai County in the yellow category, and that was updated yesterday that it stayed in yellow. Any other questions about our metric and Panhandle's metric? I think for me, and as I kind of said in my opening comments, I recognized, or I failed to recognize before, that that we have these two competing models, or not competing models, but these two models running parallel. I think a lot of our community is unaware. I think the fact that all the surrounding districts are using Panhandle's model has created some confusion for us. And so I would be in favor of moving from our model to the Panhandle model for a couple of reasons. One, just to eliminate that confusion factor. And then two, because we've said all along, we're going to follow the recommendations of our health professionals, and in this arena, that is Panhandle Health. And I think that they should carry this load. That's certainly nothing that we signed up for, nor is it our expertise. And then thirdly, I would just say, while I appreciate the work we did and the metrics we're using, I found on Monday that we're just, at least for me, I feel like I'm looking at numbers and looking at data without all the information. For instance, if we're looking at percent positivity, we don't know, if there's, let's say there's 25 new cases in a day. So I'm going to switch to incidents, but there's 25 cases. We don't know, and we're never going to know, is that a cluster outbreak in a nursing home? Is that at the jail? Was that at a school? Is that spread throughout the community? All those sorts of things. A church event, who knows, right? We don't know, but Panhandle knows. And certainly those things would all play into our risk level. If there's 25 cases and 20 of those came from our schools, that is much different than 25 cases where 20 came from the jail, let's say, for an example, or a nursing home. So I just feel ill-equipped, I guess, to evaluate the data. And I would just assume we turn that over to Panhandle Health and follow their recommendations.
I'll comment, Casey. I just want to say thanks for your comments this morning. That was unexpected, and I certainly don't expect you to bear any burden or owe any apology, but I do appreciate working with the four of you. I also wanted to say that we've had a lot of letters come in, very familiar with all the comments that have come out. And I know, just because I know this board, that every one of those letters was read, at least by me, and I have no doubt by every single one of us. And so we're acutely aware of how, frankly, divided this community is, which just leads me to wholeheartedly agree with Casey on his proposal. I want to thank staff and Dr. Cook for the tremendous amount of work I know that went into creating our criteria. I know that lots of hours spent, lots of struggles in trying to come up with what was right. And we didn't have a lot of choice at that time. And so I felt that it was, we all felt that it was important for us to do that. And at this time, though, having had Panhandle create its own metric, I agree with Casey that we don't see all the numbers. We don't know exactly where those are each coming from. And nor should it be our job to be dissecting that and really trying to piece that together and understand how we're in yellow or how we're in orange. I think we, as we've said from the beginning, have to rely on our local health professionals that have created this metric now and turn to that. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I would just like to echo my fellow board members' comments. Thank you to the administrative staff for creating our metrics and thinking ahead as early as summer on how can we keep our students and staff safe. I think the gating metrics that you created, if we all use them would be great, but I think it's created a situation where Panhandle is using one set of gating metrics and we're using another. And so I apologize to the community that Monday's meeting was confusing. And I think moving forward with a consistent set of metrics for all facilities, schools in our region will be much more straightforward for parents. And I think you're right. This is a decision to be made by our local health authorities. And so I look forward to working with Panhandle and hearing their updates every Thursday. And I guess my only question would be moving forward then, do we wait for Thursdays for data to come in? And I'm assuming Dr. Cook, you're probably going to speak to that a little bit once we finish our comments.
I'll weigh in as well. And I just want to remind us all that we're in the business of learning, and this is a learning process even in the midst of a pandemic. And so we're learning as we go. And I think our country and our world is all learning. And thank you, Casey, for your comments. And it is a privilege to work with all of you. And I am as well just thankful for the administrative staff and all the work and time that they've gone into leading us through. I do think clarity from Panhandle Health and being able to go to Panhandle Health's website and see clearly where we at is where we need to be as a community. So I would be in favor of that switch.
I'm also in favor of that switch and just appreciate all of you as well and our district administration and our staff. And I'm grateful for our community and the emails that we have had, not only from parents. We've also received some from students, quite a few students. So we do get those and we do read them. The amount of volume, I know some are like, are we going to get a reply? 80 plus emails. We've read them and appreciate your feedback and all the kind words that were sent our way. And I also agree that we need to just stick to Panhandle Health District and keep it nice and easy. And I look forward to hearing from Steve if, their numbers come out Thursday. What does that look like for our teachers and our families in the community? Because I know we talked about wanting to give a week. Is that still something that we want to do? Or are we going to be ready on Thursday to then switch Monday?
Thank you, everyone. Dr. Cook, do you want to jump in here and then we'll, it sounds like we're all on the same page. We had a proposed motion that I had asked Ms. Town to include in the packet just in case, but do you want to answer some of those questions maybe before we, before I call for a motion?
Yeah, so there's a lot in there to unpack. I can tell you this much. We have a standing meeting with folks at Panhandle Health District and get essentially a weekly situation report. And I talk with the director, Laura Whalen. I talk with her almost daily on the trends that are going in our community. And Jeff Lee, the lead epidemiologist at Panhandle Health, is providing us kind of the forward-looking path and what projections might look like, and various points of data to help inform decision making. And so we'll bring that expertise with our partnership with them. We'll bring that into feedback for you guys, and we'll make sure that as they update, we would provide that information as well. They have been very, very effective partners with this, and they're confident. I talked with Director Whalen just the day before yesterday about their gating criteria, and just asked her some questions about, this is a very dynamic situation for everybody, including them. And I asked her specifically if the gating criteria, if they felt confident about that. And she was absolutely confident that they have built a model that is trustworthy, and at least with current sets of circumstances can be relied upon, and is being relied upon for all of the districts. So we continue to get those weekly updates from them, and in some regards daily. This obviously it changes and moves every day, and a week's time now is still a long time, it seems like, with relationship to COVID. And so we would still stand that this system, this district is a large entity that requires preparation and time to get any change put into place. So we still stand by the fact that we should do the best we can. We don't feel like it's responsible to change something any quicker than a week out. And so, for example, if we voted today to change categories, I would ask that we set a date that is, like a Monday, a week from next Monday. The idea of trying to do that any quicker is going to strain. It's going to put any category change will always strain the system and puts stress on both families and staff and students, because it is a massive undertaking. But I do believe that we have to be able to do that relatively quickly. And I think a week is a reasonable amount of time for that transition to take place. And I would also, we can't control this, but the stability of being in a category for as long as we possibly can will help our students tremendously. And I would advocate for that opportunity when the time comes. I recognize that that's something that we can't control, but I do want us to not think from the lens of kind of knee-jerk response and just we're yellow one week, we're orange one week, we're red one week. The stability is going to be critical to student learning and student success and keeping folks healthy. So hopefully that's a good enough start for those questions, but I'm glad to answer any others.
Just if I can chime in there too, I just want to remind the board, and I'm sure you're keenly aware of this, so maybe it's just a reminder for me or for the general public, but the statutory authority to change categories does lie with us based on our resolutions that we've created, and we would not be moving that authority to Panhandle Health. They will purely be our guide. And so if they make a change, that would come to the board, and it would take board action for us to change Coeur d'Alene school districts to follow suit. So there will be kind of a chain there in that process, and tried to spell that out in our motion. Does any other questions on this? Are we ready to make a motion? Yes. So I'll ask the question since I have the packet in front of me. As you know, I can't make the motion, so if one of you so moves, please do. Is there a motion to discontinue the use of the school district's matrix for COVID risk for assessing operating category and replace it with the Panhandle Health District's county risk level for schools and businesses? The board directs administration to modify the district's reopening plan and any existing resolutions to reflect this change and bring it back to the board for approval. Additionally, the board directs the superintendent to notify the board in writing when Panhandle Health District changes the risk level, and work with the board chair to schedule a meeting for board information and action. The board recognizes that a change in risk level by Panhandle Health will not equate to an automatic change for CDA schools, and that any change for CDA schools would require board action.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes, Ms. Town. All right. So that moves us to our next action item here, which is the operating category. And just a couple things I'll highlight there. We did several weeks ago, about a month ago now, we approved some language that we would use resolution process in the event of a categorical change. And that was in our packet. And Ms. Town put it in there under the premise that we would, we potentially would be moving to yellow. And it would be an effective date of a week from Monday, October 5th. So that resolution was in our packet, and with a summary there as well with a motion that we would consider. I guess I'm gonna make an assumption, but then ask for your affirmation that since we just agreed to adopt Panhandle Health District's county risk level for schools and businesses, that the five of us are in agreement that we are in the yellow category, and that we are in agreement that we'd move to yellow. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I don't think there's need for a lot of discussion then, but is any comments anyone wants to share or any discussion before we move to a motion?
I think the only thing I wanted to say is that I want it really clear that our board meeting today and the decisions are based on the board kind of recognizing, as Casey said from the beginning, and Dr. Cook outlined with the history of how we got to our criteria, that today's not a reaction to the commentary and the criticism that happened this week, but today is really in response to recognizing where our own criteria were, having some time to evaluate what was being represented as a spike and not really knowing how that would be interpreted under our own. And, you know, after reviewing everything and having opportunity to get the most recent information, at least for me, that's why I'm feeling very confident and comfortable today in how we're moving, and that it's not reflective of some of the things going on in the community.
Anyone else?
Yeah, thanks, Jen, for that. Dr. Cook, I would like to, and I know you touched on this a little bit before, but let's just do a scenario that maybe given some trends, Panhandle Health moves us to orange next Thursday. Could you speak a little bit more to that, and so what the community could expect if that happens? And I know we touched on it, but maybe a little bit more, please.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that that this action, this board is now undertaking is it puts the decision making of what the level of risk in our community is back in the hands of the health district, and it creates this dynamic where we've built a plan and a system that functions in the level of risk, whatever is determined by the experts. Excuse me. If and when, I think probably is a better statement, the health district makes a discernment about the category level of risk, whether that's green, yellow, orange, or red, we would immediately bring it back to your attention and say, okay, we're faced with an opportunity to make a decision that would then potentially align. And so this is what they do. This is their expertise. And so if it does happen, if they come out Thursday and say, we feel like we need to go to orange, number one, there's a reason they're saying that. That's their job. They're experts in that field, and public health is their responsibility, and that's what they get paid to do. And then it's our responsibility and the 5 of you to make a decision on what's best for our community of learners, for our staff, and for our schools. And so we would bring that their expertise. They're quite willing to come stand before you and provide that feedback. But they also recognize, and I don't want to speak for them. While I talk to them quite regularly, I don't want to speak for them as to what they might do, but I can assure you that they are dialed into what these trends are, what those expectations are. And as I think Chair Morshow's examples of, they understand the nuances of whether or not this is when you have 50 cases, what's the nature of those 50 cases that might come up in a day, and that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that we would not ever be able to be accessible to as far as district staff. And so it's one of the reasons that we have such a good partnership with them, so that they can guide us in that decision making. And I think that's probably what we would hear about. And I think there will be times when they will say the risk is now, I can't tell you if the second something goes up into the orange or drops down into the yellow, that they will change it on that trigger. But I do think that it's wise for all of us to allow them to make those decisions, because that's what they do.
Okay, anyone else? Just quickly, I guess I'd like to reach out to or speak to those. We had a lot of comments, as Ms. Pickford mentioned, over the last 96 hours. Emails in the hundreds, I would guess, but certainly 70, 80 within the last 24 hours or so. And I think there's folks that may be surprised that those comments are all over the map. And I just want to recognize those folks that express concern that moving from orange could be dangerous or ill-advised, that the district has done a lot of planning to make sure we're operating appropriately in the categories based on the risk at the community level. And I have confidence in Panhandle Health, in their ability to assess our risk level. And I have absolute confidence that the plan put forth by the district is appropriate for those risk levels. So I feel comfortable moving forward. And I hope that those who are uneasy about a change to yellow will review the plan and see that we have necessary precautions in place based on the level of risk that the county has put us at to address those concerns. But we hear your concerns, and certainly we're going to continue to work with our families to address their concerns. Okay. There was a summary sheet with a motion. Does someone want to make that? You guys don't have it in front of you. I guess I can read what the motion would be.
I have it, Casey.
Okay.
I would move to approve resolution 20-21-002A, changing the risk category for the district's operating framework from orange to yellow, effective October 5th, 2020.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's been approved. Dr. Cook, could you just quickly maybe highlight for those folks watching? I hear we have maybe a couple hundred on YouTube watching this morning, probably getting ready to get off to work or get their kids to school or online school. What's next is what can they expect? I assume we're going to start communicating out what yellow looks like, because we've spent a lot of time talking about orange.
Yeah, we've got some communications ready to go out that will go out today that will explain the nuanced differences by being in category yellow. The first and obvious one is the fact that we would be in 5 day a week school in person for all students. It does give us a little less ability to socially distance. We say it's socially distancing as practical. So you'll see that language. We still recognize that social distancing is one of the major non-pharmaceutical intervention strategies to try to reduce the spread of COVID. It does still require masks. We are going to remind folks to try to do the best to spread out as well as they can, and to wear masks, especially when we're in those confined spaces or in a classroom. Typically our classrooms are 900 square feet. And so you can spread out to some extent, but you can't get 6 feet apart in those classrooms. And so that communication will start today, and we'll remind folks. We're going to have some logistical issues to move desks back into classrooms and those kinds of things. And we'll continue to monitor all the situations that are affiliated with this. We're going to continue to ask folks to make sure you stay home if you're ill. I can't emphasize that enough. That's still a challenge. Please don't send your kids to school if they don't feel well, especially if they have the symptoms. It's our challenge now is to try to keep our schools open, and it takes a partnership with our families to do so. And keep washing your hands. Those are the things. Those are the main criteria, and hopefully we can do this safe, and we can continue to provide great teaching and learning experiences for our students. But that communication will start. I'm guessing Scott's probably already in the middle of getting that stuff ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Cook. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of you. It was an early meeting. I think in my 6 years on the board, this might be the earliest meeting we've had. It's certainly close. So I appreciate you all for finding the time so we can meet early this morning and being on with us. And then thank you to our families who are joining us and our constituents, a couple hundred strong this morning at 7 a.m. And I know that's a chore. So thank you as well. If there's nothing further, we'll go ahead and adjourn and let everyone get off to their day. So, okay. Thank you, everybody.